Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, thanking you for staying curious. Kicking off a new week on Monday, December 9th, 2024. Glad that you're all with us today. I've had a busy business day, so had a hard time getting in the saddle here to do this program, but we've got a good one with my personal experiences with astronaut Jack Schmitt, Harrison Jack Schmitt from New Mexico, who's on his way to the moon 52 years ago with Gene Cernan and Ron Evans on the Apollo 17 final mission of humans going to the moon. And they land on December 11th. So I've got guests on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesday, we've got tomorrow Bob Granith. You're going to enjoy Bob. He'll be on the show many times after tomorrow. He was a public relations officer for Kennedy Space Center. And Wednesday, we've got Daryl Higginbotham coming on. He was in charge of the uh, hold down bolts, and they're not really bolts, hold down apparatus for the Saturn V rocket. Mr. Higginbotham was in charge of. And Thursday, we're going to have Bert Dick of the National Space Society do a year in review, 2024 in space year review. So we've got a good week lined up here, and I'm going to be doing it with my buddy Marty Winkle. Hello, Marty. How you doing on this 9th of December?
I'm doing good, Mark. Hope you are also.
Well, I am. I'm sorry to leave you in the lurch a little bit today, texting him about what the program was going to be. Our executive director and myself, Gabriel Rothblatt, had an important luncheon with a potential benefactor for the museum. And so it got our days messed up here a little bit. But I knew I wanted to talk about Harrison Jack Schmitt, who's 89 years old. And the youngest moonwalker is Charlie Duke, who's also 89 years old. Charlie's birthday's in October, and I think Harrison Schmitt is a 4th of July baby. I think he's the 3rd of July, actually. But those are the two youngest moonwalkers of four that are alive. Buzz Aldrin's 96 years old, and David Scott is 92 years old. So pretty soon these guys are going to be gone. That's why I wanted to talk about a moonwalker that I spent literally 3 or 4 days with as a professional photographer covering an event that he was at, several events. He came to the University of Tennessee when I lived up in Bristol, Tennessee. He came up there and did a talk to the geology department because he was friends with the geology department head, Larry Clark. And we're going to see pictures of all of them and talk about that here. So hope you enjoy my personal recollections and a great American. We're going to talk about Harrison Jack Schmitt here on today's Stay Curious. And there he is. That's actually a picture he took of his commander, Gene Cernan. You can tell it's Gino because he's got the red stripe on his arm there, and that's what the commanders wore. The spacecraft was called Challenger, and it was lunar module number 12 off the assembly line at Grumman up in Bethpage, New York, Long Island. And Marty, our co-producer here, was a lead electrical engineer on that, Marty. There's the back side of it there that you walked around it a few times. And the dark is called Inconel, right?
Yep.
And I saw some Inconel in some engines today at Via Space. That's who we were talking to about their support of our museum. And Inconel is still a big part of today's space age. Well, let's kick off today's show here by reminding you, don't know why that's out of focus. I took that off the line. That's Apollo 17 in real time for some reason, and we're flying by the skin of our pants today. Okay, everybody watching. But you can watch what's going on live on the going to the moon on Apollo 17 right now. That's out of focus. Yeah, I took that off the line. There, you can hear me talking Apollo there. 17 all right. Go to Apollo Real Time. All right, and I put on our website, or Facebook, I mean, the link to that. And as they are going to the moon, you can see the photos taken inside the cabin of the Earth. Their conversation is so exciting, and they land on December 11th about 5 in the afternoon. So 2 days from now, they orbit for almost a full day. Then they land and stay on the moon for 3 days. So you're going to see a lot of live footage from the moon shot 52 years ago on the 11th, 12th, and 13th on there. So glad everybody's joining in today. Happy Monday to you, Steve Jokums up at Lake County Spaceport. And our Ferraris did the best they could, finishing 2 and 3 at Abu Dhabi there at the last Formula One race. And Steve and I are both follow that. So hello to my daughter Jessie, watching Grandpa. Hello, McKinley. Hello, Macy. There, let Grandpa make you a big reel there to wave to you kids. I know they're getting excited for Santa Claus. Thank you, my daughter Jessie, for watching today. Steve, we got Thomas Celentano. He had the privilege of meeting Dr. Schmitt a couple of times, so chime in there anything that you want to about my comments about him. And Tom Usiak, good afternoon to you. We're off to a good week. Sorry to be a little late, but better late than never. And Battle Waffle, greetings from Germany, huh, Marty? From somebody named Battle Waffle. And thank you for watching. Around the world, we have people staying curious with us. So again, we're going to have 3 great guests the rest of the week. So this is sort of my little personal story about a moonwalker. Marty's got a space trivia question of the day. Go ahead and take it away, Marty.
Hey, which manned Apollo mission sent back live television pictures to Earth for the first time?
It could be easy, could be hard if you think too hard on it there. So, which live pictures from Earth for the first time? And we'll let y'all answer that, and including Steve Jokums, who probably knows the answer because he doesn't have to look things up. He's a smart space geek there. Here is the crew of Apollo 17. You've got, my daughter is reminding us that you can watch on the Christmas Eve on Google Maps. All right, watch Apollo on Christmas Eve there. Thank you, Jesse. Like, share, tell people to watch us. It helps us monetize our YouTube channel. Well, there's a picture of the press shot that they took them all out, put them on a hot Florida day in their moon suits with the Saturn V rocket they're going to land behind there. And that, of course, is Gene sitting down and Harrison, Jack Schmitt on the left, and Ron Evans. Gene was 40. Harrison Schmitt was 37, and I'm not sure how old Ron Evans was, but they have both passed away, and only Schmitt is still alive. Of course, he replaced Joe Engle as the person who was going to the moon on this mission because they wanted a true geologist to go to the moon. And so that was some controversial decision. Joe Engle took it with a lot of grace. Joe Engle actually flew an X-15 rocket, just like Neil Armstrong, and was going to go to the moon. But he, instead of wanting to be one, they allowed him. They said you can choose any of the Skylabs that you want to be on, or Apollo Soyuz test project. And he said none of them. I'm going to wait for the true space plane. And Joe Engle did, and become commander of course, STS-2 on there. My daughter Jessie was reminding y'all you can watch Santa on Christmas Eve on Google Maps. So thank you. I'll be putting that on our Facebook. We love watching Santa go across the country. We got some guesses already. People are favoring Apollo 7 as the first transmission of a television show or image from an Apollo. And let's see, Carlton Bailey's saying hi. Ron Evans was at space camp, and Gene at many different places. He met them, so he's met all 3 of them, he said. And Steve Jokum says he got to meet the late Gene Cernan. They make such an impact on all of us. You'll never, ever forget your encounter with a moonwalker. And so let's talk about those encounters. There is Gene and Schmitt. there's Gene Cernan was disappointed that his buddy Joe Engle wasn't going with him to the moon, and he may have been upset about it. In some documentation is written about that, but you're going to the moon with someone that's got your back, and has to learn how to survive with you together. And here they are. It looks like Gene had already shaved after they changed their clothes from their last of 3 EVAs on the moon, and that's Schmitt with his beard there. Um, but they were a cohesive team. I watched the launch on the Apollo 17 live, Marty, and I just really love the banner between them as all the crew members and Johnson Space Center as they're riding this mammoth rocket and making commentary so coolly. And in fact, Gene, who rode a Saturn V on Apollo 10 on the barnstorming the moon, everything but landing, with, of course, Tom Stafford and Tom Mattingly on board that, orbiting the moon. They Gino was saying, "Get ready for staging. All right, it's going to be a real kick in the butt." And of course, then Harrison Schmitt come back. Wow, that was pretty crazy, and Ron Evans talking about it too. It's just great stuff of part of our history there. Robert Law, thank you for joining us in Dundee, Scotland. He said he met Gene, who is the only astronaut who could understand his Scottish accent. Okay, and so Tom Celentano's what listened to the whole crew. It was so important for them to be ambassadors the rest of their lives out there. There's Ron Evans. Don't want to leave him out. Okay. Of course, Schmitt and Evans were rookies. All right. Gene was a Apollo 10 and Gemini 9 veteran on there. And there is Harrison Schmitt inside of the lunar module after the third of 3 EVAs. Look at his spacesuit, Marty. Now, this is familiar territory to Marty Winkle on our Streamlabs board here. Marty, you want to comment about what we're looking at here? What's the trained eye see there that I don't?
Well, obviously you can see the window there, and the overhead is a little, I don't know what you call it, like place to put a hook. That's one of the restraints they would have during in flight. And you can see the circuit breaker panel behind them. I think that was panel 16.
Now the pegboard looking material there, was that covering? What was that covering, and what was that made of?
It was like a fiberglass. I'm sure it's fireproof, but it felt to look like fiberglass. And as you can see, some netting off to the right-hand side also.
Okay, in there. But was that covering
It's covering some wiring.
wiring and stuff like that to neaten it up? So of course, weight was such a consideration. But wow, look at that moon dust on them. And I'm going to interject things I asked about Harrison Schmitt. He got irritated with me when I asked him if the moon was itchy to his skin, because he said no. And I said, because there's no atmospheric erosion on the moon, so everything would have sharp points down to the microscopic size. So I thought it'd be itchy. I said, John Young said it was itchy like fiberglass. And Harrison Schmitt snapped back at me. I said it wasn't itchy, So it could have been in different areas of the moon or whatever. But he's 37 years old there, and he's 89 years old now, talking about that experience till the day he dies. There he is at the third lunar rover that was put on the surface of the moon. As I understand it, if we put fresh batteries in it, we could probably drive it off to where they were parked to watch the liftoff of Challenger. He's got his faceplate off there a couple times, and even on they did 7-hour EVAs, 3 of them. A lot of them broadcast live in full living color, but there was no 24-hour news channel. There was no outlet for them, so the local news, the national news, would just have snippets of it on there. So, how did I first meet Jack Schmitt? There's my space hipsters, keep calm and set SCE to AUX, tribute to Apollo 12, of course. So all of us astronomers from the Bays Mountain Astronomy Club up in Kingsport, Tennessee, we're going to the Howard Baker Center for Public Policy at the campus of the University of Tennessee, where uh, Schmitt was going to be giving a talk about his experience. The native of Santa Rosa, New Mexico, was friends with Larry Clark, who was one of the world's experts in lunar soil. And Schmitt would come to the campus in January and teach for a week the geology class at the University of Tennessee. And how thrilling would that be to have this? So he always gave a talk. So I think 3 different talks. But this was at the inaugural luncheon dedicating the Howard Baker Center. And Howard Baker himself was there. So it was an evening event. So we all drive about the 90 miles from Bristol, Tennessee to Knoxville on I-80, 81. And of course, I've got to hit the bathroom right away. And so I run into the bathroom and I'm standing by the urinal, and the next gentleman to stand beside me at the next urinal was Jack Schmitt. And so the first time I met him, I turned to him at the urinal and said, "Hello, sir." And he said, "Hi." I said, "I'll be sure to wash my hands double when I see you outside." And he laughed, and he come out and we shook hands, and a friend of mine took this picture of us. And he said, my commander, he called Gene his commander a lot. He said, "My commander told me never pass by a bathroom. You will regret it." Because people are always asking, as an astronaut, "Hey, let me ask you this. Let me talk to you about this." So that was kind of funny. And that's true story how I met the gentleman standing at the urinal there. Then a couple years later, I'm a 3-day photographer at an event that he was at, and I'll talk about that. And I said something to him when I went up to him, and I said, "Hey, I'm the photographer. You're going to be seeing me a lot the next 3 days. I've seen your talks down at the Howard Baker Center." He says, "I remember you. I met you in the bathroom, didn't I?" And I said, "Yes, sir, you did." So great guy. I'm a big fan of his. We'll talk about that here. There he is talking in front of the group. He was 73 years old. This is 2008 experience I'm talking about. All right, 73 years old, and now he's 89, and pretty good health there. But a very scientific mind. He, again, though he was a geologist, he didn't have a lot of warm fuzziness in him about like writing poetry about his experience on the moon. Hardly any of them then. And Dean Babcock mentions that are the suits worn on the moon in preservation at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and I certainly believe they are. Some are on display around the world. For example, I think we've got Alan Shepard's moon suit is on display at the Apollo gallery, or I mean the Saturn V Center, Marty. Don't you think? I think they got one. I'm pretty sure it's there. But when you see them, you can see the dirt from the moon on them there. Well, what Schmitt talked about 16 years ago was that America had lost their deep space capabilities. We do not know how to do interplanetary travel anymore. And we traveled to our nearest so-called planet, celestial world, the moon. So he knew all about that. And he was lamenting that, or lamenting that we didn't have a coherent space policy since Apollo. All right. And though we keep trying to have it, it keeps getting canceled. Now, he was part of the Constellation space program of the Bush administration. Okay. That was hoping to use the Orion spacecraft to routinely take 6 people to the International Space Station by 2015. And this is 7 years in the future here. There's a friend of mine, Paul Lewis, who was the outreach for astronomy at the University of Tennessee. He's saying to Schmitt, "Hey, buddy, can you spare $1?" There's an inside joke on all of us there. There is the geology professor there, that Larry Taylor. Larry Taylor, I call him Larry Clark. Larry Taylor there, and his good buddy that he enjoyed talking about the moon rocks with. Larry told me he got to go to Houston and look at some of those rocks that Jack brought back. Uh, he was landing on the Challenger on the Taurus Littrow Sea of Serenity. All right, they spent 3 days on the moon and brought back 244 pounds of rock. And so they got to investigate some of those in their class there. Well, this is part of his talk that is based on his book, Return to the Moon. And the reason why Schmitt thought he would inspire people to return to the moon is there's an isotope of oxygen 3 that all kinds of things can be made out of on the moon there. But he basically wanted to create the National Space Exploration Administration. All right, revamp NASA. And I remember Schmitt saying, I know how to fix NASA. You fire everybody over 40 years old. And everybody's like, what? Fire everybody over 40 years old? He goes, yeah. When you're 40, you're just part of the Peter principle. You're just cranking out what you know. You've not learned anything any new. You're just showing up, pushing paperwork. The people in their 20s or 30s, there's the ones that are going to the new conferences and so forth. If you're over 40, you're kind of washed out in the space business. And today we see the young space engineers of Blue Origin and SpaceX particularly doing things that are just so amazing. And Marty, just like your era of Apollo, hardly any of them have any gray hair in those flight rooms and the launch controls and so forth. They're all young people in their 20s and 30s. There's his book. If you don't have it, there's not a lot of warm, fuzzy stories in there. It's a lot of technical ways to settle on the moon in an entrepreneurial spirit, with a famous picture of Schmitt there walking on the moon. There again, raise global stature of the U.S. in the Cold War II. This is the benefits of it. Lay technological base for lunar settlement. Bridge the operational divide between Moon and Mars. Create inherent capability for asteroid impact defense, something that Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweickart is all about, with the actual interplanetary defense system is a real thing now. So let me make a comment about that. Is that there's my friend Bob Smith getting Jack to autograph a book. He wouldn't autograph anything else but a book. Okay. And as a lot of the astronauts 15, 16 years ago had contracts with Nova Space, all right, that their signature could only be sold by them. Well, this was at an event at the Barter Theater. Barter is a unique theater in Abingdon, Virginia, where people like Gregory Peck got their start. Ernest Borgnine got their start there at this little theater. And they premiered in 2009 now, Blue Sky Boys. Blue Sky Boys never hit it very big, but it was a very good little play about the space workers. Little did I know I would be representing space workers here at this museum. The Blue Sky Boys came from the name that they were going to blue sky things. It's brainstorming. Brainstorming became blue skying in the engineers' minds of the 1960s. And the Blue Sky Boys were stumped by the sheer magnitude of the endeavor going to the moon, and they find that blue skying saves the day. And in this play, they have inspirational visits from Galileo and the Roman god Apollo, even Buck Rogers and the Red Baron. So I thought it was a good play. Never made it to Broadway, apparently, but it did make big enough splash to get Harrison Schmitt there for 3 days, including the premiere. and he did a great event with about 100 kids making rockets that they launched, that sort of thing. Um, and I got to get him to pose for me after he warmed up to me. And me being a professional photographer, there was a young little guy that he got a picture of, and I said, Jack, would you just mind giving me a little pose here for my own photography chops here to get you not just looking like an astronaut? And there he is, and that smile, that twinkle in his eye, that is Dr. Harrison Schmitt, a very cordial man, very warm guy. Everybody just loved him there, and I'm sure all of you that met him speak the same way. Celentano says Schmitt spoke at the NSS conference in Albuquerque in 2011, and so he was a senator from Albuquerque, from New Mexico, parlayed his fame into a term as a senator there. Hello there, Bill Whiting. Glad you and your wife are enjoying your supper, watching Stay Curious today. So he parlayed his fame into a 1977 single 6-year term as a Republican senator from New Mexico. And he quips, my footprints on Taurus Littrow will last for billions of years. My footprints in Washington, D.C., not so long. All right. He is another astronaut politician that got frustrated with what their main job was, Marty, to raise money. All right. I've heard a lot of astronauts, including Jack Lausma, who ran for Senate or a seat in Michigan, say that all they wanted me to do was raise money, for the next guy after me. But he didn't get elected, but that was the gist of it there. So there he is on the moon with the American flag. He said that he enjoyed his time on the moon. Each step along the way had some special memories. He said he doesn't draw comparisons from the experience because there's so many fantastic memories. Quote, being a rookie, the Saturn V launch got my attention. The first stage was a lot like riding a pickup truck on railroad ties. And then the third stage veered right, and I knew we were leaving Earth. I remember downtime and seeing the Earth and taking the photo of Africa plainly seen. The landing was great. Getting outside was even better. And we're going to end the show with his classic photograph that you know of the blue marble Earth with Africa pronounced on so distinctive there, and Antarctica seen there. He took that photo. Schmitt's also famous for finding the orange soil from surface vents that were once active 3.8 billion years ago. And I don't think that's a picture near the orange soil, but it shows you that him working there. You know that's him because he doesn't have the red stripes on his hat, on his helmet, his arms, or his legs to denote that. But look at how we progressed with the bags on his side there to carry more cargo. They've got fancier helmets to keep their eyes shielded there. These are photographs that I want to remind you all that are on Flickr as you're reliving the Apollo 17 this week, 52 years ago, and I hope you are. Go to Flickr and put in there Apollo Archives, and every photograph on their Hasselblad film magazines, that's what we call them in the photography world, are there just like a photographic strip of negatives there. Even all the bad ones are seen there. And Tommy Usiak, when you look at him, Tom, like me, will think the one thing, boy, they're overexposing everything. They really have a lot of what we call hot photos overexposed. But you can download those photos and enhance them any way you want. So I recommend in your boredom, or if you're up there cabin fever this winter, some of you up in the cold states that get a lot of snow, go to Flickr and enjoy looking at some of the history and all the photos that no one's ever seen, except few people that seek out this site. Typical scene from Taurus Littrow. It was chosen because they thought it was a volcanic area. There is also a raid crater from Tycho that threw out debris when it impacted 50 million years ago. And they actually landed in some of that debris, hoping to get stuff that was churned up from the center of the Earth in there. So let's see here. One thing that, and that, like I'm saying, those photos that are on here, Marty. See, this is a bad photo. That's actually been flashed. That was either at the beginning or end of the roll of film because it was accidentally exposed to some light, not after it was taken, but before. The big square photos of the Hasselblad there. But you could crop that out and look at those feet there. Pull that out, throw some contrast in it, and you got something that you can put on any advertising or anything like that. There's the background. Taurus Littrow Mountain in the back. You know, one thing that you distinguish from the science fiction movies of the 40s, 50s, and 60s even, is they all showed, and even image photographs, they show the moon as sharp, like Rocky Mountain, sharp mountains and so forth. No, these lunar soil has been pulverized, not by wind or rain, but by micrometeorites that have pounded on the lunar surface for millions of years, and it churns up the lunar soil like dust over and over and over. And so the mountains are actually smoothed over by the dust that's been churned up for billions of years. I love the shadows and shadow play. These, of course, are the experiments that Cernan and Schmitt laid out. And there is Gene riding the rover. Oddly enough, the only the commanders drove the lunar rover. I even asked Charlie Duke. I said, Charlie, did John Young let you take it for a spin around the block? He says, nope, only the commander was allowed to drive it on there. And I'm going, gee, that was kind of too bad. And he, I think Charlie said it'd have been nice, but he said that's just the rules, the way it was. You see, they had like lawn chairs on there, very, very basic on there. So. And there is, not to be outdone, there's Chris Calley. Guess where Chris got that image from? Chris Calley's pencil sketch of Gene on the moon, Apollo 17. Thank you, Chris, for your support of the American Space Museum. I see that we got John the Beagle Dad's watching today. Mitch Rothman of Man Space. Please go to Man Space on Facebook if you're a Facebook user. Mitch does an excellent job celebrating the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, ASTP, and Skylab history there. We've got Neil 1030s watching today. Carlton Bailey, Battle Waffle from Germany. We said hi to Tom Celentano and Tommy Usiak and Bill Whiting. My daughter Jessie and my grandgirls are watching. Wave at them again. Jessie, Steve Jokums, Robert Law, Doug Forrest is watching, and he's digging this sketch of Chris Calley's. Dean Babcock, Cliff Watson, and Dave Stange. And Friday, I'll probably show some of the artwork of some of our friends like Doug Forrest and Chris Calley that they've done to honor Apollo 17 over the years. We'll end our week here in December with that. So let me see if I got any other notes of interest about Mr. Schmitt. During the this is a good point that Schmitt makes about his book that's now 16 years old, and how the space community needs to be thought of. Is during the Apollo 13 crisis, Schmitt said during a speech, Flight Director Gene Kranz killed time by figuring the average age of all the people in mission control. All right. And that age was 26 years old. So all of the people in mission control at Houston that were saving the lives of the Apollo 13 astronauts, their average age was 26. Okay. So you had some 30-year-olds, but boy, you had a lot of people in their 22, 23, 24 range in there. Young persons were an essential part of the success of Apollo, and we need young people now to help us return humans to the moon. And Dr. Schmitt, we've got those people now. We truly do, 16 years later after you said those words in there. Going to the moon is important because we have a library of solar system history and Earth's revolution. All this knowledge is not unrelated to origin of life on Earth. That's why we must explore on there. So, Schmitt also was very amazed at the outpouring, like all of the Apollo missions before him. They were sent on a world tour to promote the fact that we didn't conquer the moon, okay? We went in peace for all mankind. And Schmitt always commented that it was remarkable on our world tour to see the turnout. He said, we as a nation didn't capitalize on that. The whole world was looking at us. These goodwill trips of Apollo 17 and crew were messages to the rest of the world that we wanted to explore. And we didn't capitalize on that. And we're paying the price, okay? For the past 4 decades, he said it's been obviously we don't know how to do it. Go back to the moon. Well, now we're trying to learn how to go back to the moon again. And hopefully we'll do it before you pass on there, 89-year-old Harrison Schmitt. But we're now scheduled to go back to the moon. Not this year. It was originally Artemis was going to land in 2024. Now they're saying 2027. All right, we might get a shot at that. So, but there's a lot of political wrangling that's going to happen, as we know, to decide the fate of that on there. So, all right. Well, I had a good time reliving some experiences with Harrison Schmitt. I'd love to meet him again. He's in apparently pretty good, robust health like he was when I met him 15, 16 years ago. Marty, your question of the day. Oh, you know what? I wonder why that's not doing that. Okay, again. It's these boys right here. Repeat your question. And here's the answer.
The slides there, Mark, I think just need to go forward, I think. Guess not.
Yeah. I don't know why that slide's not repeating.
It showed up on the, when I checked everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was the first television picture sent to the Earth from Apollo mission? And I thought that may be tricky, but it wasn't because several people got it.
Yeah, we got Tom Usiak, Dave Stange got it. Had said hi to Dave, Neil 1030, Steve Jokums. So, and that was Apollo
7.
Apollo 7.
And I'd like to say Jesse got it with Santa, but Santa really wasn't on Apollo 7. But I'd like to give her partial credit.
Santa, yeah, Santa. There you go. Thank you all for watching today. Like my daughter says, keep hitting that heart like button. It helps get our video out there. And Carlton says, didn't the local car dealer that arranged for all the Corvettes arrange for a bumper sticker to be placed on the moon rovers? I'm not sure about that, but that would have been Rothman, the Indy 500 winner, who parlayed that fame into a lucrative Corvette dealership here in Florida here. There were bumper stickers out for space workers. We occasionally see them and they come up. But here is one of the most publicized photos ever in photography is this shot that Jack Schmitt took as they were coming back from the moon. And there's Antarctica. And they're looking at, oh boy, we're going 30,000 miles an hour and we got to hit this thing just right and do a little skip and then come back down. And everything worked out just fine. So thank you all for watching today and let me share my personal experience with Jack Schmitt. And thank you for sharing your experiences. I also invite you to give us some holiday decorations that you have around your house. Send them to MarQ at americanspacemuseum.org, and we'd love to share them for you here on there. And we will shared some of them on Facebook already that you've sent. So I'll rack a few of those up tomorrow. But tomorrow we got Bill Granith. Bill Granith is going to be a great show that you're going to want to watch because he dealt with the astronauts. He dealt with all the space workers. He was a public relations guy, and he's got some. We're going to get a little bit about his background, and then we'll have him on, I'm sure, more than one time throughout the year. And Tuesday, a guy that you're not going to want to miss, Daryl Higginbotham.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, Daryl Higginbotham. He designed the hold-down clamps on the Saturn V rocket. And boy, there's some great pictures and stories about that I've already seen that he's going to share. And then Bert Dick is going to be with us on Thursday and give us the year in review 2024 in outer space and space technology. So until tomorrow, I'm saying thank you all for watching Stay Curious today. And I am Mark Marquette, and I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us. Thank you.